Welcome, everyone. Appreciate you joining us today. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about food safety certifications. And so hopefully that is the workshop you signed up for because that's the one you're at. And so it's got a nice long title, too much words for us to go through this morning. We'll get to that. Let's talk a little bit about introductions and a little bit about a word from our sponsors. And so we've got a few sponsors to talk about today. So first of all, we would like to discuss our Regional Food Business Center. So the Northwest and Rocky Mountain Regional Food Business Center. And I think Colette's going to get us started out there. They're helping to pay for the content today. And also we've got some great grant programs through there. Some of you, if you've not signed up for the newsletter, please do so. But we're going to talk a little bit about that, and I'll let Colette get started.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Colette DePhelps. I'm with the University of Idaho Extension, and I am located in North Idaho on the Moscow campus. I'm one of the leaders of the new markets for grains, pulses, and pseudo cereals theme team at the Northwest and Rocky Mountain Regional Food Business Center. And the Regional Food Business Center was really created to help small farm and food businesses expand their business viability in their markets by strengthening local and regional supply chains and to increase market access. So today's webinar is part of that education and outreach we're doing because we know that food safety certifications are something that more and more buyers are asking for. And we wanted to increase everybody's understanding of what different food safety certifications entail and then how that plays out in the market space. So we're really excited to be here today. Our Regional Food Business Center has 4 themes, and Yana is going to talk about one that she's intricately involved in. I'll just quickly talk about the 3 other themes. So the new markets for grains, pulses, and pseudo cereals sounds pretty direct. We are really looking at how can we support businesses to scale into markets and to ensure that more grains, pulses, and pseudo cereals that are grown in the 6-state region that the center serves, which is Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, and Colorado, are available to small-scale processors. And that could be food products, it could be distilling, could be brewing, could be milling. And then also looking at how we can have more value-added products in the market. The center also has a couple of other themes. One is the animal protein supply chain. So they're really looking at building the capacity within the meat processing sector, a lot of workforce development for processing, helping processors run their plants more efficiently, and helping producers access the processing they need. And then we have right-size investment in infrastructure, which is really looking at kind of the financial side of businesses and scaling. And so they're looking a lot at business acumen, and then how can businesses access the financial support that they need and the technical assistance they need to thrive in local and regional food systems. So that's kind of a little bit of an overview of our center. We are one of 12 centers across the United States. If you go to our website and sign up, you'll learn more about our Business Builder Grant program and our technical assistance that's available. So I did want to say that at the end, I'll talk a little bit more about the technical assistance available to businesses and how you can contact us to receive technical assistance that's specific to your operation.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Colette. And another team that Jen and I are both on is the Connecting and Scaling theme team. And that's for entrepreneurs that have that food product and are trying to scale. And so we've got a variety of technical assistance programs. helping facilities get into like food shows to be able to demo your product. And we've got a wide variety of courses and classes about packaging and regulatory and business and marketing and things like that that we've been able to bring to different entrepreneurs as well. We also have a part of that connecting and scaling is a podcast of other food entrepreneurs. And so if you have not listened in, that's another good one. We every month, certain states get to highlight their entrepreneurs. And so that's another good one to be able to talk to other folks, hear other folks' challenge, hear about other people's origin stories, things like that as well. So that is the Regional Food Business Center. I also wanted to give a few moments to a couple of colleagues that are part of University of Idaho Extension, as well as part of our Food Business Center, to just give a little bit of explanation and let you know who they are. So Jen, I see you've got your camera on. Would you like to quickly introduce yourself there? And then Ariel, we'll have you come next.
Hi, thanks, Yana. I'm Jen Werlin. I am located in Driggs, Idaho, in Teton County. I'm an extension educator for our county, and I have a focus on community food systems. And yeah, I've done a lot in just our local community with food entrepreneurs. I taught classes here in the past, and we had a community kitchen for a while, and that has since closed, but I'm really interested in helping rural communities within this subject. So it seems like there's a lot more support in more urban settings. So anything with rural communities in terms of food entrepreneurship, working with small farmers, value-added agriculture. And if you're in the Eastern Idaho area, that's my area here in Extension. So thanks.
Thanks, Jen. Ariel?
Yeah, thank you for having me today, and hello to all of you. I'm Ariel Agenbrod. I'm an area extension educator with University of Idaho Extension. I'm located in Boise, but I work regionally with my small farms programming, and I also work statewide with my work with farmers markets. I'm on the board of the Idaho Farmers Market Association. I'm also on the board of the Boise Farmers Market, and my focus has really been on mostly small scale market garden development is kind of how I started out, but that has moved into a lot of different areas that touch all of those growers. So food safety, on-farm food safety. I've been a trainer for the FSMA, Food Safety Modernization Act. Some of you may have experienced me there. Lots of fun. And then also working on really direct market access, supporting farmers markets around the state. And so a lot of experience with cottage food production, and going into kind of the next steps, right? Which is where many of you probably are finding yourselves. So glad to be here. Looking forward to talking to some of you on the breakouts.
Thanks, Ariel. Kate, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Kate Wood. I work for University of Idaho Extension as a program coordinator for our community food systems and small farms programming. And I work also on the Idaho and new markets for pulses, grains, and pseudo cereals with the center. I'm on as technical support today. So if you have any issues with your Zoom, you can message me or email me. Since I've been the one sending out stuff, you've got emails from me. Just let me know.
Thanks, Kate. Appreciate it. Technical support is always needed. So a little bit, I'll introduce myself as well. So my name is Yana Hamlet. I work with University of Idaho Extension as well as Tech Help. Tech Help is Idaho's Manufacturing Extension Partnership Center. And so I work with food manufacturers from teeny tiny owner operator size all the way to our larger manufacturers that we have here in the state of Idaho, with really any of their pain points and anything we can do to help them be more successful and meet their goals. So welcome everybody. Now that we've kind of got through our introductions, we are going to have several guest speakers throughout to bring their words of wisdom, their experience, their information. As we get to those areas, we will introduce those folks and those folks will be able to talk with you. Let's talk a little bit about logistics here. So we are scheduled to go to about 1:30 Mountain Time or about 12:30 Pacific Time. We always have to do the hop and the jump between the hour differences between those time zones. We will have a break here in about the middle or so. And then we also will have a couple of breakouts for you guys to be able to ask questions and chat with each other. But that's kind of logistical. We are recording this for those of you that are going to join later or have to drop off. We completely understand you guys are all very busy. But as Colette talked about at the beginning here, we wanted to put this workshop together because there's a lot of food safety certifications and there's a lot of acronyms. You should have gotten a handout with some of the alphabet soup of food safety certifications. And so we wanted to just be able to provide some information, some guidance, some thoughts. We're really going to cover kind of 3 categories today. We're just talking about food safety certifications today. We're not going to get into like ethical sourcing and identity preserved, like organics and halals and those kinds of things. We're really just going to cover 3 categories of food safety certifications today. One of them is good agricultural practices or GAP. Another one is GMPs or good manufacturing practices and food safety kind of audits. And then the last one that we'll kind of end off today with are those GFSI. And GFSI stands for Global Food Safety Initiative. And so you might have heard of SQF or BRC or FSSC or Primus, those kinds. And that's what we're going to cover today. So we're got a little bit of intro kind of stuff that we're going to talk about, and then we're going to go into one of our first breakouts. So you've gotten a handout, or we will definitely send you the handout as well if you haven't gotten a hold of it. But it's really just talking about all the different acronyms. When we're talking about food safety, there's different types of audits, there's different regulatory requirements, there's different regulations, whether it's a state, whether it's regional, whether it's a national. And there's a lot of different audit companies. And so a lot of people might confuse an audit company with an actual audit. And so there's a lot to think about there. And so we want to encourage you to ask questions throughout this workshop. We've got some breakouts, so there'll be even less people together to be able to ask questions. And then at the end, I've got Colette's and my contact info. Feel free to reach out to us. And we'll talk a little bit more at the end about some of the technical assistance and some of those programs that you might be able to take advantage of. So we'll talk about those towards the end. But let's talk a little bit about all audits are not the same. Some audits are accreditation, some audits are certification, some audits have requirements they have to meet because they're also accredited by another body and such. And so when we talk about food safety audits, there's a lot of complexities, there's a lot of nuances, things like that are all going to be involved in part of it. And really, the main thing to understand is, why do I even want to go through this painful process? Because it is a business decision, and it's going to take time, and it's going to take money, and it's going to take some dedication. And so you got to ask yourself, why do I even want to deal with this? And so there's a lot of advantages to getting a food safety kind of certification. One of them is that your buyers may require it. And in fact, that's how most folks initially jump into this, is they find a buyer or a retailer or somebody that wants to buy their product. And they're like, well, I can't buy it unless you get X audit. And so that's one reason why to get audited, is to be able to grow your business as well. But auditing is also helps you to get to industry best practices. A lot of food entrepreneurs may not come from a farming background, may not come from a producing background, may not come from a food manufacturing background. And so understanding all the industry best practices, understanding the regulatory, is not something that they necessarily have in their wheelhouse. And so getting some of those certifications may actually help you to make sure you are making a better, safer product as well. And then the last one we have on there is just the trust and credibility. And so you may be able to open up additional channels because you have these certifications. And so other customers, other retailers, other buying channels will be able to say, hey, I should look at them because they have that certification and I know how important that is and what that means. And so I'm going to see if I can buy their products. So there's a lot of reasons, and there's many more. When we talk about audits, we're also talking about that your entire system, your entire programs, everything from your facility through your policies, your procedures, how you train your staff, your actual end product, all of this is going to get looked at. So it is a holistic audits, all three of the type we're talking about today. When we talk about, how much is an audit going to cost? It does vary because of a variety of things. The number of products you have, number of employees, number of square footage, the number of food safety plans you have, all of that's going to fit into a big equation to figure out how long is this audit going to take. There's also requirements for some audits, like the GFSI ones we're going to talk about. It's a minimum 2 days. That is a requirement. So even if you're a teeny tiny facility with 2 employees and 1 product, it's still going to be 2 days. Also, the costs vary quite a bit, depending upon the audit company, depending upon how much help you're going to need, how much assistance you might have, depending on the length of time. They're going to be anywhere. Some audits are as inexpensive as $1,000 or $1,500, but then you get into those GFSI audits, and they're usually going to be at least $5K, if not more, depending upon the facility and how far the auditor has to come and things like that. Another question that typically comes up is how long is it going to take me? So I'm gonna make the decision to do the audit, and I just schedule that for next month. And I would tell you to slow down a little bit there and think about what are the policies and procedures and programs you have into place. Think about the type of audit that you're going to have. Think about your previous knowledge and understanding of that audit. Think about how much time do you have to dedicate to it. Generally, as a small business owner, you're wearing many hats. And so you're not going to have all day, every day to just focus on food safety plan certification. Somebody's got to make the product and sell the product and market the product and all this other stuff. So also keeping in mind that some audits require you to have at least 3 months of the programs in place. And so keep that in mind. We're going to talk about a gap assessment. Really, what a gap assessment is an audit of your facility that you do yourself, or you can hire somebody to come in and do for you. But it just mimics the actual audit. And if you've got most of that pretty much figured out, awesome. If like every question or every code element, we don't have that, we don't have that, we don't even know what that is, well, then I would say we're gonna need to spend some time. And so it may take longer to be able to schedule that audit. So also when we're thinking about good agricultural practices, it's all around making sure that we're following our local regulations, our state regulations, and then our federal regulations as well. And so when you're going through a gap audit, and Mike is going to talk to us more about how they handle their good agricultural practices audit. But be aware that it is going to start, again, like I said, all the way back to that farm level as far as you go to distribution and value added. So we're going to talk real briefly here. Heather's going to join us and she's going to talk a little bit about when she buys product for her school district, what she's looking for. So I want to introduce Heather. She's got 20 years in child nutrition. She's got a BS degree in management. She's a school nutrition specialist and born and raised in Idaho. I like that one. That's good, right? So Heather works with the child nutrition program for Bonneville Joint School District in Idaho Falls. Not everybody here is from Idaho. So Idaho Falls will be in the eastern part of the state. It's been a while since you took a geography class, right? And so she works with students every day to assess fresh, nourishing meals. She has a background in finance and a passion discovered in a school kitchen in 2004, dedicated her career to feeding kids well. Heather has her bachelor's degree in management and the school nutrition specialist credential, a strong advocate for healthy, locally sourced food, and has worked with producers, educators, and state leaders to improve school meal quality. She shared her expertise at state and national conferences, including working with the CDC and the Institute of Child Nutrition. She values her partnerships with local farmers and producers, recognizing their vital role in feeding communities. She's driven by the belief that fresh regional foods help kids thrive. At home, she enjoys gardening, sewing, and spending time with her husband and 2 kiddos. So welcome, Heather, and thank you for spending time with us.
Thank you so much. This is a great opportunity for me as I'm constantly looking for ways to add to our menus and new opportunities, but also connecting local. That's been a thing that is very important to me. Our school district has just over 13,500 students. We serve meals in 23 schools. We have 23 plus schools with our online schools. We're just becoming very diverse as far as how we are educating our kids. We typically serve just over 4,800 lunches per day and just over 1,200 breakfasts. So my responsibility is making sure that we procure all of our supplies, our food, everything properly. Child nutrition is actually a federal program, and it sits under the direction of the USDA. So they have all things to say about how we're running our program. Like she's mentioned, I've worked in child nutrition for 20 years, and over those years, I've seen lots of changes. Initially, when I was the menu planner, we just had to meet certain nutrients, and you could kind of get those however you wanted. There was no requirement to offer fruits and vegetables every day, and we didn't because it wasn't the requirement, and so we could kind of mix that up. But in 2010, the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act came to be, which is a USDA program. And well, it's a law that was signed into law. And that changed dramatically. Like the child nutrition, our whole world was kind of dumped on its head, but for a very good purpose, a very good reason. And with that came fruits and vegetables required every day on every tray. And so a minimum half cup fruit and vegetable has to be offered to every student. So it doesn't matter what line they come through, if it's the pizza line, if it's an international, whatever it is, there will be offered at least a half a cup of fruit and a half a cup of vegetables. And then to take it one step farther, vegetables are broken into 5 categories. So we have red, orange, and dark green, then we have legumes, then there's the starchy vegetables, and then we have other vegetables that they're just other. And that's probably what we served the most of before this act went into place. So it's really broadened our horizons, and we've really been able to offer a wide variety of fruits and vegetables to our students. About 10 years ago, I attended Produce Safety University, which is sponsored by the USDA, and it's a week-long training offered to food service directors. And it was very eye-opening to me. I went with the intention that as soon as I got done, I was going to call my local growers and I was going to bring in whatever food I could find because I had been to Produce Safety University. The problem that happened there is I learned about GAP, what Yana had just spoke about. I learned about traceability. I learned about much more about food safety, and it really opened my eyes, but it also made me very nervous. We serve 4,800 lunches and 1,200 breakfasts every day, and those kids are our neighbors, our grandkids, our children, they're our friends, and it's very personal to us when we provide those meals. And so I had to take a step back and look at where I was going to buy those fresh products from. Food safety obviously is number one. Where's the water coming from? What's the workers, their cleanliness? Are they transporting, different bacterias up the ladders, down the ladders? What does that look like? Are animals free to roam in your crops? Those are concerns. And then what type of fertilizer are you using? If you are, going out to the cow pasture and just spreading it on, are we using quality fertilizer that's safe? And like she mentioned, that we've just seen such an increase in recalls on produce. And that's another thing, is that traceability for us. So if somebody just randomly comes and wants to sell me their lettuce crop and something happens, I need to know, like, where do I go back? How do I work the chain backwards? And that was something that was very, very well taught and discussed at Produce Safety University, is that traceability. I have the codes. I know exactly where to go. I can tell you the day I purchased it. Everything that comes into my warehouse gets date stamped. So I can go back very quickly, but also I depend on our suppliers to be able to let me know in a hurry if something has been recalled, because it's so urgent because of the population that we serve. The other thing that we have to meet is crediting. So USDA requires that a half a cup meets a certain requirement. And so an apple, a 125 count apple, actually credits 1 cup of credit for fruit, but a whole orange credits a half a cup. A whole banana is a half a cup. So we use the food buying guide, the USDA's food buying guide, to know how much they credit. So when we're looking for our produce, we need to know certain portion sizes. We need that to meet those portion sizes so that we're in compliance. Some of the challenges that we face when we're purchasing local is quantity. Just for example, is I buy 15 cases of apples a week, and sometimes our small growers, that's a hard ask, and so we've actually partnered. So our produce supplier in Boise has been able to find some of the small growers, and so we've been able to buy hydroponic lettuce this year. And we've just supplemented our lettuce production or usage with these few cases that they're able to produce. And so we're super excited about that. We've been able to support them. And the next challenge we have is cost. And that lettuce comes at such a high cost compared to our romaine that's, we're buying unprocessed romaine. We went away from the bags and the chopped romaine, but just the cost is so much less. And we have about $2 a plate to prepare a meal. So the fruit, the vegetable, we have a protein requirement, a grain requirement, and then fluid milk. So those fruits and vegetables, they're half of our plate, but that $2 allowance for food it's very restrictive. So we are looking for best pricing But again, if we find those relationships and we can supplement, that's how we've been able to support local. And the other thing is competition. It's a federal contract that we have, and so we're subject to federal purchasing. Oh, Colette, thank you for putting that link in there for the food buying guide. So, but our contract, our bidding purposes, we have to go out, open and fair competition. So we're trying to make sure those dollars are spread as far as they can. That's really all I have at this moment. And I look forward to the breakout for those of you who may have questions.
Thanks, Heather. Appreciate that. We are also going to have some question and answer time here in just a few minutes after Mike talks to us about being a producer that has gone through a good agricultural practices audit before. So thanks, Heather. I am sure there'll be lots of questions. So that brings us to our next guest speaker. Mike is owner of Purple Sage Farms. As a fifth-generation farmer, Mike's agricultural background has strong roots that inspire his passion to build resilience and diversity on his family's farm while growing nutrient-dense food for the community. He grew up on the family farm in Middleton, Idaho, left for a short time to get a BA in botany from University of Montana, and then came back to manage those operations in 2010. Mike continues to grow his expertise through endeavors on the farm and in the kitchen, all while raising his family on that farm. He's a respected leader in the local organic food community. Purple Sage Farms is an award-winning family farm recognized for persistent and long-term advocacy for Idaho's locally and organically grown food system. So welcome, Mike. Thank you for joining us. And I'll turn the time over to you.
Great. Well, yeah, thanks for having me. And we're a small family farm. My parents started in 1989 growing specialty or mostly culinary herbs like basil and rosemary and chives and mint and then we grow greens, salad and spinach. And we have about an acre in greenhouse, a little less than an acre worth of greenhouses, and then we have about an acre where we grow outdoor like peppers. We grow a lot of peppers and dry them. We have a dehydrator. We dry a lot of herbs and sell dried culinary herbs, and then we sell them fresh as well. For the fresh herbs are our main business, and we've been doing that since I was a kid. In about 2015, we started the drying program, and in about 2017, we saw a need for getting the GAP certification. It's called GAP GIP, Good Agricultural Practices / Good Handling Practices is what we have. So we can harvest the herbs and then pack them, and we can dry the herbs and then pack them and sell them. And so we saw a need for that because we had a customer, a produce distributor, asking for that certification. But also it was we saw the writing on the wall. The FSMA Act was coming into fruition about then, and it looked like either way, we'd have to be doing a lot of these practices that GAP requires, hand washing procedure, sanitizing, all this stuff. So we just went and did it. I have a technical writing background in college. So I learned how to read and write scientific experiments, and so it took a winter. The winter we don't have as much to do. Things aren't growing. Well, the greenhouses give us a 9-month growing season, 10-month growing season. So I had 2 months or so in the winter to write it, and it took a good amount of that time. But and then we practiced it for about a year before I called the Idaho State Department of Ag, as we certified through, called them and started getting the inspections going, the audits, it's because we sell these specialized crops, this basil, rosemary, thyme, everything, garlic, chives to bergamot and bronze fennel, all these things. We need a wider distribution, so we sell to every state in the country, and we're selling to food producers of many kinds. And so it turned out we started getting it for the distributor, but over time it helps us get new customers easier. Because yeah, they're way across the nation. We don't know who they are, but we just say that we're GAP certified already, and there's one big hurdle out of the way, and it just makes it easier to onboard these new customers. So yeah, we started with the fresh produce distributor requiring it, but then every time we get a new customer wanting to, make seasoning blends or ferment vegetables or anything, it helps tie us with them and get a new customer. And yeah, but yeah, that writing that food safety plan is a big challenge, especially if you don't have college training on writing, and but the program provides a lot of resources, the ag extension programs and the GAP programs themselves. There's GAP website with all the all the answers to the test. Basically, you can write various kinds of food safety plans, from one specifically to each question. They go down the list of questions in the inspection, and you can write an exact answer to that, and follow it by the book. And that's the most simplest form of just question and answer directly. But for a farm like ours, we had to kind of create a little more around it because we're so small. The GAP program's made for larger larger volumes, and maybe like single crops, or maybe 2 or 3 crops that are encompassed in one GAP certification. And so with the well, yeah, we had to write basically a full food safety plan. And every time we get an inspection, they're saying, oh, you could do a harmonized GAP with this plan, or, you get this is a plan, that does a lot more than the certification I'm getting. But the main reason we're getting the simplest one is because it's cheaper, $1,000 to $1,500 a year. And, we have to make that value call of like, okay, if a customer is requiring us to get this audit, or for an extra $1,000 a year, how much more does that customer have to buy to pay for that? And it's got to be, in my mind, it's got to be times 10 at least, but really times like 100. It'd be nice if you spend an extra $1,000 and you got 100,000 out of it. But in reality, it comes to probably more like 20% or 40%, of sales. It turns out to we can squeeze in the cost there. But our product is special. We have a high value products, high dollar per pound, high poundage per square foot, because of the greenhouses. And so that allows us to squeeze in the cost on a lot less product than other products like grains or things would have to do. So it's tricky to squeeze that in, and the customer can also nickel and dime you and then not buy it enough in a year. But you have to spend the GAP money at the beginning of the year. If they don't buy enough by the end of the year, you can't really go back and charge them a surplus fee. So it's a trick. And contracts are helpful, but they're cumbersome. And so we don't go by contracts. We just we poke and prod the customer. We've become pesky, and yeah, after a few years of it not working, we may drop that customer, or drop that certification, because it's not paying for itself. If we can sell it elsewhere. But like I said, once you have the certification, you might as well keep going, because once you have the food safety plan, that is the biggest barrier, getting that written. But then, once you have it going, each year I try to do an annual review, a little review, reading it over, making some changes. But it should be up and going. So as long as you follow it, that is the trick. And that's my main revision each year, is simplifying, taking out pages. I just delete a whole page of the food safety plan that I didn't need. All this extra writing sometimes, or duplicating logs. Sometimes we duplicate, we have a cleaning of some equipment on this log and it's also on this log. Well, we figure out a way to combine it and delete one, so we don't have to keep 20 logs. We can keep 10 and do the same thing with it. So yeah, and the inspections, they can be, for us, a small farm, but 125 different species we grow. It's a 3 to 4 hour inspection, and they move pretty quick. And mostly because I've had 10 years of practice, and we've had 30 years of certified organic inspections, so we're used to inspections. but yeah, it is a workload that day, but hopefully not leading up to it. You've already done the work throughout the year, and so you're doing it right. If you don't have much to do leading up to the inspection, hopefully you can get it done throughout. Although each year I wait till the end to do the mock recall. It's always a challenge. You got to do a mock recall. That's a trick, but yeah, yeah, and yeah, I think that's most of the questions there that I had.
Yeah, that's great, Mike. Thank you. Appreciate that. So we do have a little bit of time here to ask Mike and Heather some additional questions before we go to our first break. So I think back in the chat, I was trying to monitor the chat. David asked, understanding the gap can be tailored to storage and processing as much as to field crops and the cultivation side of the supply chain. And Mike, you talked a little bit about that, that you have that additional portion that is added on to your gap audit so that you can process. Do you want to go into that a little bit more at all?
Sure. Yeah, in our food safety plan, we separate the harvesting and the packing. And so we do them at different times. We harvest outside, of course, and then we pack indoors, and we have a harvest log that lists the poundage and everything we're harvesting. And then we know where it's harvested from because we keep a crop map up to date. Our crops are changing month to month in the greenhouses. Things grow fast. And so we pair the crop map and the harvest board, or basically the big harvest list of what we harvested. And that's the one step back, basically. In the packaging part, you have to do one step back and one step forward. So our one step back is our harvesting board and procedures and crop map and our time clock of who was working that day. And that's, the who, what, where. And then the one step forward, we have a separate one, a packaging log. Basically, when we're inside packing, you have a spreadsheet that says, this is everything to pack and what unit and how many. We have a column for its harvest lot. And that, ties back to the harvest board. So we got a column for the harvest lot and then a column for who it's going to. So that's the one step forward. And then, the one step forward, the customer gets an invoice, and that's their document of a date and what they got in hand and our document. So if there's ever a recall, when we do the mock recall, we basically start with an invoice from a customer and work it back to the field and all the conditions associated with that, where the cleaning log ties in. We have a cleaning log for when we wash dishes and stuff, and that's dated. And then we have, and so, you can match up the date with the invoice, the date of the cleaning log with the date of the invoice, and the date of the sanitizing log we have of what we sanitized that day. If there's any illnesses, we have an illness and injury report. When somebody gets sick, we fill out an illness report. And so we use the dates a lot. And so, yeah, some people use Julian dates and things, but we use like a week number. And well, I had to come up with a whole different timing because some of the others didn't work for us. But yeah, it is a trick. But having all those logs tied together by some kind of date system is how you can kind of pull all that together, all those disparate logs together into one kind of mock recall, basically.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Mike. And you've addressed the question about mock recall. We'll go ahead and open it up. Does anybody have any questions for Mike or Heather?
I see we have a question about group gap.
Oh.
And where the line is between good agricultural practices and good handling practices.
Yeah, and so generally speaking, you can have that conversation with your Department of Ag or with your third-party auditor as well. There are different sections of the checklist or the code or the questions that are going to go to the farm side versus the harvesting and minimally processed kind of side. generally speaking, if you're not the producer harvesting kind, you might want to look at a different audit. Most of the time, that gap is really focused on the producer farmer side. If you're purchasing ingredients and are manufacturing into a value-added product, and then selling, and you're not really doing the growing yourself and such, generally speaking, you might want to look at one of the other two audits that we're going to talk about, because it's just a better fit. And depending upon why you're doing it, your customer or retailer may not accept just the GHP portion of that group gap. We've got here, Mike, David asked, how log our daily tasks? And you were talking a lot about some of those logs that you have. Could you cover maybe a little bit there about how you go about daily tasks?
Yeah, it's tricky. At the beginning, I started a little more complicated, and quickly I started paring down the log load to be simplified, to have things, but then it can get complicated when things have multiple meanings. So it does take a trained staff, and that's the way we succeed, really, is we have two employees here, and my wife and I that's our workload here. And it's trained staff knowing these things. And we set up routine. We always have a kitchen set up, and at the beginning of the day, you got to make sure there's no food safety issues, and then you initial on the log. And what we have done with all of our logs, they're all the grid, your standard. It's a table with headers and squares to write your initials, and it's laminated. And then we have a big walk-in cooler, so we can put magnets on these, and they're on the wall of the walk-in cooler where we're at all the time. And so when we log, they're right there in front of us every day where we're working. They're colorful. I color coded them so they stand out. And then we use dry erase markers. You can write on them logs, the date, take a picture, store it on the cloud or on the computer, and then clean it off with alcohol or whatever, and not have to waste a bunch of paper. And so we use laminated logs a bunch to manage all that paperwork and keep it in folders and stuff on Google Drive. But yeah, that log management, you start out with more and pare it down, I'd say, and see where you can combine them.
Yeah, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. So you get lots of logs. We're all feeling that we're all very famous because we initial all the time and we sign all the time, and everybody wants our signatures. So, and whenever you work in food manufacturing, you're very famous. Your initials and signatures are highly sought after. We had another question, Mike, that you kind of talked a little bit about around the ROI of investing in GAP or organic. And so you talked a little bit about the cost, but there specifically, the question is, what is the estimated cost to maintain those certs, both in fees and your admin time?
Yeah, I'd say in the wintertime nowadays, I spend maybe 2 full days reading it over very closely and making changes. And then but I maybe do 2 hours a day for 2 weeks, 16 hours, something like that, of reading and writing and doing some changes and reprinting. And then it takes another extra couple hours at least to retrain people on the updates, if there's any updates. And we do annual retraining too. So I just try to time the annual retraining requirement with the updates. And administration of it during the season is hopefully nothing more than filling out the logs and then taking pictures of them and making sure they're in the right folder, so when we get to an inspection, we can just randomly choose one and go pick it apart. So but yeah, it might be 40 hours in a year of my time actually like dealing with the logs or making sure, hey, you didn't fill out that log, can you go initial that, or filling them out. So yeah, not a huge commitment, but we are a small farm, and I can see how it could get up to be a lot more.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And also keep in mind that most of these audits, they're not a one and done. So it is an annual research. And if you're not staying up with it and continually following your policies and procedures and your food safety plan, you can't just pop in a month before the audit and try to catch up for the year. That will get you into some big trouble. So keep that in mind also when you're thinking about those time commitments, that it is a year long, it will be all year, and you will have to have that annual research. And so it's a business decision, but like Mike talked about, how many folks would purchase, but if they didn't have the certification, perhaps would not purchase from a certain farm.
Yeah, and I'm sure you'd want, yeah, return on investment at 20 times the cost of the actual certification at least, but really 40 times that. If you spend 1,000, you know, you want to get 20 to $40,000 in sales back, and you know, the extra insurance they require on top of that, because it's not just GAP anybody's requiring, it's also insurance coverage, which can be even more than GAP too. So on top of that, you got to go you got to make sure it's going to be a business deal that's going to make you quite a bit of money. And you know, it's a long ramp up too. Heather was talking about the troubles of supplies, and you know, the plants, the trees especially, grow a little slower than our time scale of thought, you know. And so it is hopefully a long-term thing. You want to make sure it's a customer that's going to be there for multiple years too, because it's going to take a lot of work. That, you know, some of the initial work writing the food safety plan, you know, it's a upfront investment that you need multiple years to get back that time paid on that.
Yeah. No, thank you. So thank you, Heather. Thank you, Mike. During the break, Colette had a question that Mike might be able to help us out with. Colette, do you want to ask that question again?
Sure. Mike, thank you for sharing your experience. And you talked about your technical assistant or your technical writing experience and how that was really helpful in developing your food safety plan. Are there any other types of resources or educational programs that you participated in that were helpful to you as you pursued GAP certification?
Yeah, there were a few. I attended some classes that Ariel actually put on through the extension office, and that talked about food safety plans a couple of years before I wrote it. And then I also I attend farming conferences in the wintertime, like one's called Harvest and Hearth, or back in the day it was put on by NCAP. I forget what that one was. Just a number of different organic farming, but also just general farming conferences, and they had breakout classes for those things too. So I took a lot of notes and compiled them, and then you know, I had a friend who was managing a commercial kitchen who showed me. Sometimes if you just see what you need to do, like physically, for me, it opens up the door. So I saw, like, what does a chapter in the food safety plan look like? There's a header, then there's a scope, you know, responsibility, and then you start doing little paragraph explanations and bullet points and numbers or naming procedures. I got to just see that for a little bit and sit with it, and then also another resource was looking at the training course that the GAP inspectors actually do. And so it's a grid of, like, here's the question and the number of the question, here's the reasoning for the question in the next column, and here's the possible correct answers. And I basically sat that on one screen and my food safety plan on the other, and made sure I was answering those questions within the parameters in the training for the GAP inspectors. So I tried to line it up right up. And then after doing all that, I looked at it and thought about it holistically over time, and kind of pieced it back together, because it was kind of a Frankenstein with all those different sources. And so I had to make it one cohesive unit over the course of a year or two. And then I felt ready to get the inspectors there after wrangling with Frankenstein for a bit.
Thank you. I think that's helpful for everyone to
Yeah,
consider your approach. And that it took a couple years until you felt ready. That this is like a
definitely.
long game. It's not tomorrow I'm going to be GAP certified for most people. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much. So we're going to kind of transition out of GAP and talk a little bit about, HACCP and food safety and GMP kind of certification. This is kind of the stepping stone. So if you're into the more value added, more processing side, less producer side, you can get a third party audit that is looking at your GMPs. And so what are GMPs? GMPs stand for Good Manufacturing Practices. And they're basically the baseline, the minimum required to be able to manufacture and process food. So we are now getting past the grower side and more into the manufacturing and processing of different food products. And so GMPs are a government, they're federal FDA, Food and Drug Administration. You can find them in 21. 21 is for FDA. CFR stands for Code of Federal Regulations. And then they're in 117 subpart B. And so as you're looking at the journey to food safety certifications, David is going to talk to us about SQF and those GFSIs. But maybe you're not quite ready to jump into those. Those are going to require quite a bit of documentation and things like that. There is more of a stepping stone kind of step, and that's what these GMPs, food safety audits are. You can see there, this is the portion of the subpart B that is the GMPs that are actually located in the preventive controls for human food. And so we've talked about this a little bit. FDA Food Safety Modernization Act has been around for 20-something years. And one of the rules is preventive controls for human food. And a portion of that rule are those GMPs. And so when we're talking about the food safety kind of area, there's really, when we talk about federal, there's the USDA and the FDA. Now, EPA gets involved, OSHA gets involved, various other federal regulatory bodies get involved, but mainly when we talk about food safety, it's USDA or FDA. And so USDA is meat, poultry, and eggs. And HACCP is their food safety format. FDA, it's everything else other than meat, poultry, and eggs. And it's going to be FSMA, the preventive controls for human food or animal feed. So if you're making animal feed, there's a different rule. If you're making human food, there's a different rule as well. And so those are your framework for your food safety plan, whether it's HACCP or whether it's the PC for human food or animal food. And so these food safety and HACCP and GMP kind of audits mainly look at, again, your whole facility. It's going to be requirements of those GMPs. And those GMPs are going to do everything from sanitary design of the facility, the layout of the facility, your staff and their personnel hygiene, hand washing, hair nets, allergen control, allergen management, pest control, how your facility is cleaned around sanitation, wet and dry sanitation, how you store things. We've talked a lot about traceability and recalls and understanding the requirements around being able to, Mike mentioned, one up, one back. So you're required to be able to trace your product from who you purchased it from, or if you happen to be the producer, that information from the field and grower that Mike talked about throughout your processing steps to who you sold it to. And so Every food company, third-party audit company has some of these generic food safety, GMP kinds of audits. And like I said, if your customer, your retailer, your buyer, those who are you're selling to, tell you you have to have some kind of food safety certification, you want to ask them, can I do a HACCP GMP food safety certification, or do I need to have a GFSI kind of certification? And that would be those SQF, BRC, Primus. Because your GMP, your food safety HACCP GMP is going to be typically a little cheaper and a little bit shorter of duration, as well as maybe not requiring as much of the policy procedure framework that David and Jess here, who's going to join us in just a minute, are going to talk about for those GFSIs. So keep that in mind as well. I think we're getting close to our time here that Jess, and I think Jess just joined us. Oh, there she is.
Hi.
Jess, I stole your picture and bio from your webpage, just so you know.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So Jessica Norris is the owner of Dilly's Pickled Veggies. She's the founder of N&H Foods and has owned Dilly's since 2016. She is a woman-owned small business and maintains the Women Business Enterprise Council certification. In 2021, she achieved GFSI status with SQF audit. And so Jess is going to talk to us both about having some of those certifications before and then kind of her pathway to SQF. And David is also going to talk to us a little bit about SQF as well. In 2004, a little pickle company was founded, making the tastiest pickled asparagus and green beans in the Northwest. With encouragement from all who tasted and loved them, that company has grown into the brand that you know and love today. In 2016, Jess got a new facility, facelift, some great taste, cleaner, brighter packaging. Dilly's now offers more than the original asparagus and green beans with a variety of pickled veggies. And there's even more that are not on this list that Jess can tell us about.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
I want to turn the time over to Jessica to tell us a little bit about her journey through food safety certifications and audits, and appreciate her taking time today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Yana. Thanks for asking me to step in and help with this. Your guys' food safety journey is just getting started, and there is so much to learn, and it's very overwhelming. I'm just going to say that, like from the beginning, it is completely okay and normal to feel overwhelmed. It took me, gosh, a year and a half to implement my program. I have a 6,000 square foot production facility here in Cuna, and we make 3 different sizes of products. So we do a 16-ounce jar, a 32-ounce jar, and then we do a 1-gallon food service pail. And we have to have HACCP on all of it. Every single product, every ingredient has to be listed. So it's a big undertaking to get all of that stuff put together. I guess I'll start just kind of like why we did it. It really was for peace of mind and making sure that the companies that we were working with and that we were getting into and getting picked up by for grocery stores and those markets and that type of product, or where they're placing our products, required SQF or some sort of GFSI audit. And so it was really okay, we do this, or we kind of stay little and we stay with farmers markets, farm stands, and stores that don't require it. My goal has always been to ship truckloads, not just cases. And so GFSI was required for us to make that big next step. So we pursued that starting in 2019, I think 2020. It was 2020 because our audit was rescheduled twice because of COVID. So we had delays with like not being able to get people out here. So we did an online audit, mostly for HACCP certification at the beginning until they could send an auditor to our facility. And then our first audit, I didn't fail, but I didn't pass like with flying colors either. I got I'd have to look back and see what it was. I think I was an 86 or not 83. I was an 83 and 86 was required, or 85 was required for the annual audit. So I got to have an auditor come back 6 months later and check us, and we got a 90. Pretty sure I got a 90 the next one. And since then, we've only got up. Last year, we actually got a 99, and I'm hoping and excited that we can keep that. That is kind of the best of best. We always want an audit to find something. And then auditor's goal is always going to be find something during an audit. Ours was we were missing some documentation for a couple of weeks on cleaning sheets. They weren't fully filled out. So it was right in the middle of summer. We were in the middle of our Costco order. It was chaos. I know that it was getting done. I just did a not great job of documenting all of it. So she marked me on that one, said she wanted a thorough inspection of like every single checklist that we have, not just a line drawn through them. So that was on me. I took full responsibility for it, and we, will be better and more diligent about it. But it's those types of things, the little things that your auditor is going to look for during an audit that kind of helps shape the program and helps shape what your program will look like. Every auditor's focus is going to be different. I have some that they are meticulous about the details of the wording. That when Yana knows drives me a little crazy because everybody interprets the code differently. And so it's really just making sure that you are polite during an audit and that you are kind and you ask questions because you're always learning in SQF. And then I have other auditors that I've heard that are like just sticklers about cleanliness, and they want to make sure like your drains are scrubbed and every single piece of anything that's off the floor and your walls are completely washed down, and they'll walk around with gloves and they'll wipe off the bay doors, and they look at all of that to make sure there's no dust accumulation. They make sure there's no like just bugs or pest, signs or anything like that. So the program that it isn't intense. It's pretty detailed. I have let's see, 1, 2, 3. I've got probably a dozen binders that I keep in my office and in our warehouse. Everything from employee manuals to our policies and procedures. We have shipping logs, we have receiving logs, we have production logs, we have inspection logs for trucks and trailers when they pick up or ship. We have pest control, we have supplier documents. So it's a pretty detailed program. Once you get through your first year and your second year, it really becomes much easier to just maintain it. You get kind of yourself in the habit, you get in the rhythm of it, and it's just an everyday thing that we do. We're in production here today. I've got my whole crew over there packing asparagus right now because we are heading towards the end of the season. So we're frantically packing a couple 1,000 pounds of asparagus this week and next week. So we have different documents. Like I'll show you something really quick if you guys can see it. Like this is my processing log. Can you see that, Yana? Yeah. Okay. So we document times, temperatures. We have to have like our brine temperature for one of our CCPs. We have to document on the back. It talks about like what herbs and spices we used, what ingredients we used, how much waste output we had. So these, I mean, I have hundreds of these in folders and binders, and all for all different reasons. So it's a pretty detailed system. It can be very overwhelming. So my advice would be like start with your first top selling product, finish the whole program for that, and then duplicate it. Fix it, change it, tweak it for every item you have. But you want to make sure you have your template down before you overwhelm yourself trying to do all of them at one time. One of the questions I was asked to talk about is the cost of an SQF audit. They are expensive. And the hardest part, like with our first one, when we failed, is we had to pay for it twice in 1 year. Every audit cost us around $7,000. So it's about $5,500 for all of the, like the whole encompassment of the audit itself, the documentation, the certification from the certification body, all of the paperwork that goes into that. And then travel fees, hotel stay for the auditor, food. You're required to feed them when they're here for lunch. And yeah, their flights, their everything that they incur while they're here, we cover that. So I think the lowest one I've ever paid was like 6,600, and they're on average between 6,600 and 7,000. So we've had the same auditor multiple years in a row. They can come 3 years in a row, and then they have to have somebody different, and then they can come back. So our auditor coming this fall, it'll be her third time coming here, and then we'll have somebody new next year. You can have unannounced audits. Last year for us was our first unannounced audit, and they can show up whenever they want to in your 3-month time frame. So our audit window is August, September, and October, and we are small enough that our auditing body lets us know, like, okay, it's going to be in this month, just because we don't run production every day, and we have to make sure that we order in produce. So we can organize and schedule to have a kind of an understanding of when they'll be here. The unannounced audits, depending on which company you're with and which, like Costco, they require an unannounced audit every other year. We are still small enough that we don't have to adhere to that for a couple more years. I think it's like a 5 or 10 million threshold. But they can send their own auditor at any time to step into our facility and audit us unannounced. We would have no clue they're coming. So super fun and exciting. You want to stay on top of all of your documentation because somebody could walk in at any time. The other cool part about having SQF is if FDA comes in to inspect, you're covered. If you have an SQF audit, everything is in place, all your documentation is there and ready. The FDA inspector will just want to look through your program, check everything, make sure you're doing your what you're supposed to be doing with the program, and usually isn't a problem. They don't really require anything extra on top of it, so it covers all the bases. Let's see, other questions. Handling the workload. Like I mentioned, as you get your program developed and you get it kind of the rhythm of it, it's easier. There is definitely a push right towards audit season. Like June for us, July, we'll get to the point where I'm like, okay, I start double checking all of my programs, making sure everything is in place. Yana does all of our like thermostat and thermometer testing and stuff. So we schedule her to come out in early August to make sure that that's all taken care of. Any calibrations we have to have done, we do in early August. We have to do our water testing in July to make sure it's all done. And I just keep it all on the calendar and I check it off as we go. Yana helped me create a gap assessment list, and it's kind of a grid that we can check off things as we go throughout the year, because there are some things that you do every single month. There are some things you do every 3 months. And we do stuff like every 6 months or so. So it just depends on what the schedule looks like. And then certifications opening up any opportunities. That is a great question. Yes. Having SQF certification or GFSI certification is instrumental in growth if you want to be with the bigger companies. We got into Costco because we had SQF, and we now sell with them seasonally every summer. And it's huge. It was huge for us to be able to offer products to them because they know that our food safety program is in place. A lot of those larger companies like Costco, they require a certain number above. So for Costco, I believe you need to be in good standing or higher. There are certain ones that want you excellent standing, which is a 95 or above. It just depends on what their requirements are and what their code says. They'll tell you usually when you're setting up your account if your score isn't high enough or you need to have them come and do an audit. Yeah, I haven't really run into anybody that has excellent requirements yet. Most of them are good, so they want a 90 or above. There are some circumstances where if you're small enough, they want special orders of something for a product. They, as in the grocer like Costco, I know Associated Foods out of Salt Lake has this as an option if you need it. They will send their in-house audit team to inspect and do an SQF audit on your facility. But it is only good for their for them as a company. It's not all encompassing for all of your other brands, but it's a cheaper option if you're just going into, say, AFS and that's kind of all you're looking at, then it's something that you can talk to your buyer about and see if that's a program that they still offer for your type of product. I'm trying to think if there's any other. Yana, did you have anything else you wanted me to cover really quick?
No, that's great. Thank you,
Okay.
Jessica. We've already got some questions. We've got a
Perfect.
question here in the chat. It says your FDA audit, does this supersede your scheduled SQF audit?
No, they are two separate things. So FDA and SQF are going to be like they're going to stay complete separate. One does not supersede the other. I feel like the workload for SQF supersedes what FDA requires, but FDA does not supersede SQF. So they are still, you still need to do both of them. So the only thing like FDA will supersede city or local inspections. If you are FDA regulated, typically like Central District Health here in Boise won't inspect us because we are FDA registered. So that's the only one that I kind of know
Yeah.
of. Yeah.
And keep in mind that these third-party audits we're talking about are not regulatory. So they are voluntary, a thing that you're bringing in because of your business decision. They're not a regulatory audit.
Nope.
And
nope.
if an auditor finds something on the third-party audit, they're not going to notify the FDA or notify the USDA. They're two different, completely separate creatures.
Yeah. Yep. They won't. An FDA inspection, they will shut you down if they find something bad. SQF, they're like, you have X amount of time to fix this. You need to make sure this is fixed now. And they probably will recommend that you let the FDA know, or we've never run into it. So I've only read a little bit about what would happen. So
we have another question, Jessica.
Yeah.
Laurel is saying, creating a plan is one thing, executing it is another. Can you share the hardest part of operationalizing your food safety plan?
Gosh, the hardest part. That's a great question. Making sure it is readable and understandable for everybody who you employ is probably the hardest part. The information that you're putting into your HACCP plan is pared down compared to what like normal conversations would entail. And so you have to make sure that anybody that looks at it understands like, oh, like we have two CCPs, our brine temperature and our pasteurization temperature. And I have to make sure my employees understand that those are critical. They are like our two steps that are required for our food safety program. And if those aren't met, the product either has to be thrown out or we have to reprocess. And so implementing something that all of your employees understand is definitely probably one of the hardest parts. So making sure that it's readable, that they understand, like we've pared down this form. We have taken so much off of this because it was overwhelming and it was cluttered and it had too many details that weren't necessary. So we simplified, we made sure that everybody understood what everything means on it, and making sure that everybody's trained on it is important. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great, Jessica. Anybody have any other
Yep.
questions, comments for Jess?
People frantically typing probably.
You can unmute and ask questions as well, for
Perfect.
those of you that are not comfortable. Okay.
Is everybody here in Idaho, or is it Idaho and Oregon and Washington?
No, we've got
Okay.
folks from Colorado, we've got folks from
Oh.
Montana, we've got folks
I
from
love Albuquerque.
Oregon. Cheryl's from Albuquerque.
Perfect. I'm
Yeah,
originally
so-
from Seattle. Perfect.
Yep, so we've got a regional
I love it.
attendees today.
Oh, I'm green. Fully green. Love it. I'll do red too, but I love the flavor of green.
And then there looks like David had a question there, Jessica.
Yeah.
How do you respond to suppliers who may have problems?
Oh, great question, David. Especially this year. Um, suppliers. So our supplier program, there is kind of a code level that you have to deal with, and some suppliers have the same type of like produce. So we'll take produce, for example. A lot of produce suppliers will have, if they're larger, will have a Primus audit. That is still GFSI, and so that meets our requirements for food safety program. We do that annually. We ask them to send us their audit reports and findings, as long as there's or as well as their certification, and they're usually pretty good. I also do visual inspections when I'm picking up stuff. I'm pretty close with most, like Charlie's Produce here in Boise, Grassmere Produce here in Boise. Like I can go into their facility as a guest pretty easily with somebody there and do a walkthrough to make sure everything looks great, for our standards, which usually is never a problem. Smaller farms, however, or smaller suppliers don't have the means to have programs like these in place. So it's really a case by case basis that you have to analyze and figure out their food safety structure, making sure that they have some sort of program or understanding about food safety. I have definitely fired suppliers because of a lack of food safety or a lack of care about it. And we've switched several times. We've also had farm incidences that turn into great learning things for my audits. Like one year, our green bean supplier had just greased their picker
Yeah.
on their farm truck, and grease got all over our green beans. And so we sorted through it was like 3,000 pounds of green beans in a bin that had grease. There was only a couple of little pockets of it that we found, so we could isolate it, thankfully, but it meant extra wash steps. It meant more inspection, more time. And we had to have a conversation with them about like, hey, could you not grease it right before you pick our green beans? So, but it's a great learning opportunity for both of us because it's something that they don't think about. I would never have thought that that was a thing that we would run into. So communication really just helps with everything. So certified organic.
Yes, nightmares about grease and flint chips from our millstones. Oh yes.
Oh, I
We
bet.
could
Flint chips. Oh gosh.
we could
Rocks.
spend
We get rocks in
hours
our
sharing.
asparagus.
Yep, we
Yeah.
can spend hours sharing examples of issues
Yep.
with food safety and suppliers. It's
Oh,
definitely
yes.
a therapy session that would be
Oh, I
helpful for
bet.
some.
Right? Yeah. Like right now, we're running field run asparagus out of Washington, and it is gorgeous. The best asparagus I probably have ever received.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
it is stunning, but they have like the little growth shoots stuck to them sometimes, and they have rocks and there's flies. We've saved several bees and taken them outside, and like, so there's been a few spiders, just there's stuff that happens. Field run, they just cut it, pack it, send it right to us. So it's really something that we take responsibility for, making sure it's clean, making sure we have sorted, we have inspected everything. And so that it kind of falls on us as the producer and the manufacturer to make sure that our program will catch those things and that we have the relationship with our suppliers that we can still have a conversation with them and let them know like, hey, if you could make sure you don't pick asparagus the day after a rainstorm because it gets super muddy, that'd be great. Like we want to have that relationship with them to be able to have those conversations. So
Great.
yeah.
One last question, Jessica, and then we'll
Yeah.
move on. Melissa says, what advice do you have for startup and small scale growers about how to begin basic food safety?
Oh, great question. Know that overwhelm is normal and make a list. Make a list that you can stick to. I was not really a list maker. My husband suggested it because there was so much and I needed to kind of hone down on what I was focusing on because I'm definitely one of those scatterbrained where I'll be like, I'm working on this. Oh, but I need this document to run this one. And then I will jump over to a new document. And then I'm 15 tabs open on my laptop and I've lost where I started. So make your list.
And I can attest to that because I have helped Jessica when she's got 20 tabs open and we can't find what we're working on. So I can attest to that.
Oh, yes. I try to do all of it at once and overwhelm myself. But it's, yeah, having a list that I can sit down and I check off, and you can do like the bullet points on it and be like, okay, HACCP, I know I need to figure out these 5 questions, and just break it down into smaller chunks. And once you've achieved that, you know that you're good to go on to the next thing on your list. The list doesn't even have to be organized in the order that you have to do it, because the program is such that you can take like your entire supplier program and say, I'm going to work on this today, and I'm going to fill everything else for this. And then the next day I'm going to go back and I'm going to work on my recall plan. And yeah, add dozens and hundreds more. That is exactly what will happen. So, but yeah, just try hard to not let yourself get too ahead on the next thing before you've completed the smaller first steps, because you'll go back and be like, why didn't this get done? And you've moved on to the next thing, and it's hard to backtrack and find where you were. So I hope that helps.
Great, Jessica. Thank
Yeah.
you very much for joining us.
Yeah.
Are
thanks
you
for
going
having
to
me.
hang out for the breakout room, or are you needing to leave?
When does that start?
That starts sometime around 12:40 our time.
I can stay on here. I've got to run back into
Okay.
production and check on
Yep.
everything over there. And I can jump back in here at 12:40.
That'll
If you
work.
have questions again, then
Yep.
I'm fine to hang out. So
Perfect. Thank
okay.
you. So we're
Thank
gonna
you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to GFSI. We've kind of already started talking about it, but we're going to formally talk a little bit about it. So GFSI is that Global Food Safety Initiative. And so GFSI has been around for many decades now. It was started up as part of the Consumer Goods Forum, really large scale retailers, think worldwide retailers, trying to figure out how do they know what is a reputable product to purchase. Because you can imagine, as a large scale retailer, how do you know that a producer, a manufacturer is going to make a safe product? Because recalls are a royal pain in the butt for them, because they've got product in distribution centers. Sometimes it's on a ship already. Sometimes it's in the air. They've got customers and folks that have purchased this product in multiple countries, dealing with multiple country regulatory bodies, things like that. And so they initially got together to create this benchmarking document, because there was a lot of food safety audits. Some of them were reputable, some not so much. And also understanding worldwide, some folks have a pretty good countrywide food safety regulatory system, some not so much. And so they created this benchmarking document, and then they invited certified program owners to write an audit code that would suffice that benchmarking document. And so these are the ones that are currently, with the additions they have out, benchmarked to that GFSI document. So you don't actually get a certificate from GFSI. You get your certificate from the certification body that is authorized to give out these kinds of audits. So actually the audit company that you're buying that audit from, they'll send the auditor out to you. They will audit you against one of these, and that's where you get the certification from. And so Jessica talked about SQF. David's going to talk to us also about SQF. That's a common one here in the US. Another common one is BRC. It used to be British Retail Consortium, but global standard, but now it's just the acronym. And another one that we've brought up a few times that is pretty popular in more of the produce pack house kind of area is Primus GFS. But there are other standards out there as well. And so you may have heard those. So Global GAP and Canada GAP are a step up from that USDA harmonized gap that we talked about earlier. And then another one that you may have heard about, if you've ever heard about ISO or International Standards Organization, FSS 22000 is the GFSI CPO with a ISO flavored. And so some folks may have heard of that as well. But like I said, the three common ones here in the US, SQF, Primus, or BRC. And so David is going to talk with us, though, about his journey with SQF and the decision making and the resources that were needed. So I'm going to introduce David. He is the founder of Timeless Seeds. David is a third-generation Montanan who moved back to the family grain and livestock farm in 1976 and converted the farm to 100% certified organic in the 80s, diversifying the crop rotation to have some green manure crops, pulses, and specialty cereal grains. In 1987, he and three farmer friends founded Timeless Seeds in order to clean and market the production from their operations. The business has grown over the decades into a multi-million-dollar enterprise with over a dozen employees, which cleans, packages, and markets certified organic, certified kosher lentils, chickpeas, and heritage grains in branded retail, bagged, and bulk formats for retail stores, food distributors, and food manufacturers all across the US and exporting to foreign customers. In recognition of his decades of organic farming and the innovation of Timeless Seeds, he and his company received awards from the state of Montana, from the Alternative Energy Resource Organization, Montana Organic Association, Montana Ambassadors, and the Organic Trade Association. David is now recently retired, so we were joking about whether he was owner or founder, or he says he's now does not have a title. But he's got a full-time grandfather of 6 grandkids and serves on the pre-planning committee for the 2026 Governor's Food Summit, which is an advisory committee for the Montana Department of Ag. The 33 by 33 Abundant Montana Project and the Diverse Market Steering Committee for our Regional Food Business Center that Colette talked to us about. So thank you, David. Appreciate you joining us today, and I'll turn the time over to you.
Okay, appreciate it. Janet, you've done a fabulous job highlighting the differences, the importance of all the food certification programs, and I think Jessica did a terrific job in kind of touching bases on some of the things to consider with SQF as well. My job, I think, will be just to kind of give some real life examples of, the kinds of things that you highlighted, Jana. So as you mentioned, and Timeless just started on my farm, just, three organic farmers who wanted to find markets for their own company or their own products. And now, 14 staff. We contract with tens of thousands of acres on dozens of family farms, both in Montana and in surrounding states. And our products end up probably in 50 million mouths a year or more as ingredients. So food safety certification, has become critical, I think, in the growth of our business, and also in where the business will be able to head in the future. Why we got certified for food safety is basically out of necessity. Timeless had been certified organic since the beginning, which kept us in business in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. And we experienced how the National Organic Program, which sort of set the standards, and organic certification dramatically increased our access to the organic marketplace. we would not still be in existence. We would not be the scale that we are without our organic certification. And although that organic was and remains a driving mission, it's no longer sufficient in the 21st century. And since we have, we end up on so many plates year after year, we kind of have a moral and health obligation, to millions of people that put our food in their mouths. So as Jana mentioned, or as Jana mentioned, GFSI sets the global standards, but it does not offer safe food certification per se. SQF is one of their recognized certifying programs, but as it turns out, SQF does not actually do the actual inspections and audits on facilities in order to verify their standards. Those inspections are accomplished by third-party service provider. Currently, SQF has 33 entities worldwide that they have authorized to inspect for the SQF protocols. I've just put in the chat a few websites. One is Timeless. You can check out more about Timeless, but also the SQF website per se. And then the third entry there is the license inspectors that SQF has authorized. So you can look a little deeper. SQF is just one of the 33. The particular inspection and auditing entity that we chose is SCS Global Services out of California. We picked them for a number of reasons, but it really kind of boils down to their experience and reputation. They've been in business over 50 years, have been GFSI recognized for at least 2 decades. Okay, so now for the practical side of things and, maybe some examples. How did we handle the workload and the cost of SQF certification? The workload cannot be overstated, frankly. Just to set up the operational protocols, the record keeping, the reporting, the required staff training, it's a daunting task. Timeless is a simple food grade cleaning, packaging, and marketing operation of dry grains. Our processing includes no water, no cooking, no need for temperature control, no blending of any of even our own products, let alone outside products. And each of our products has an indefinite shelf life. That said, our HACCP plan is about 50 pages long, and our food safety plan is 400 pages long. So it's a big deal, and it's a lot of work. So how did we get it done? Well, in our case, we promoted from within. We had one of our staff was a woman who, was very smart, had organizational skills that were underutilized, running our retail packaging line, and she was ready to move up in the organization and ready to move up in compensation. So with some guidance and a whole lot of encouragement from myself along the way, Heather researched, developed, and wrote our first HACCP plan and then the food safety plan over the course of about 12 months. It was full-time. It was her full focus. We also benefited from occasional both public trainings and one-on-one training sessions from the Montana Manufacturing Extension Center, who had a food safety expert on staff named Claude Smith. Over the years has become a close friend and someone I've relied on a lot. Additionally, our operations manager, who handled the whole processing side of things, processing and packaging, he had a decade of experience working for a local and larger food grade grain processor who had AIB certification, so kind of similar to SQF certification. So they were important, and they were experienced mentors for Heather. Point here being that technical assistance providers can and should be a key part of your certification journey. And the Regional Food Business Center has both funding and connections to offer that technical assistance to anyone who wants to take the step into getting SQF or some other GFSI certification. If you take one thing away from this, it's do not hesitate to utilize the center's resources because they are phenomenal. So in the end, it took about 12 months to develop the two plans, to create the record keeping, the documents, the description of the processing protocols, the training of the staff on both the purpose and the processes to be in compliance with food safety certification. In the first couple years, we had weekly all staff trainings for about an hour that the food safety coordinator did for the staff. One of the really important things to do with staff is to create the food safety culture, which is understanding, both the purpose, the process, and the importance to the company of achieving certification. All in all, it took about 18 months from the day we decided we were going to seek SQF certification until we actually completed setting up the plans, completed the first inspection, and actually gained SQF certification. And Heather, the individual who was tasked with setting up the plan, she continued as food safety coordinator for 5 years following that, implementing, managing, and improving what she had put in place, doing weekly staff training, conducting all the mock recalls on a fairly regular basis, preparing our annual inspection, and so forth. As Jessica mentioned, SQF inspections can be unannounced within a 3-month window. So if you're SQF certified, you basically have to be ready for that knock on the door. I mean, pretty much, any day of any week. They do narrow that down to a 3-month window. But it's important to be ready every single day. Heather's actually still with us. She's been promoted to being the marketing manager. I think she kind of got burned out being food safety coordinator. It's a huge job, and it's sometimes it's kind of stressful. But anyway, to replace her, Timeless has recently hired a food safety manager from a larger grain processing company in our area. So the cost is considerable. I mentioned Heather. Heather went from being an hourly employee in the packaging room to a salaried food safety coordinator, which not only doubled her stress, but it doubled her compensation at least. SCS Global Services, which is the entity that we actually contract with to do the inspections and audits, does an annual inspection, and that's on a fee-for-service basis, as Jessica mentioned. Our annual cost started about $8,000 per year, maybe 6-7 years ago, and now it's about $10,000 a year. And again, we are a relatively simple dry grain facility, but the audit takes 12 to 16 hours. It's on site and it's over 3 days. Additionally, over the past 4 years, we've had to invest about $1 million in equipment to upgrade them to meet the ever more stringent GFSI standards and SQF certification protocols. So it's not only what you do, when you do it, how you do it, but it's also the equipment that is available. We got dinged a few years back on our score by the fact that going through some of our equipment, some of which was 20, 30, even 40 years old, the grain touched wood, which the inspector did not like. So we had to replace, that equipment. The other piece of equipment that we found necessary was to upgrade our color sorter, and that was about a $400,000 investment. But the new generation of color sorters, and this was the 5th color sorter that we've had in like 20 years, something like that. The technology keeps improving. This particular generation had the ability not only to separate product by color, but also it has infrared capabilities, so it could kick out any wood that came by, any metal, any even rubber, and it's just a step that we had to take to continue the SQF certification. So we're a simple operation. You know what? I shudder to think what that plan would be, what our HACCP plan would be, what our food safety plan would be if we were a soup manufacturer, a baby food maker, or a slaughterhouse. We're a simple operation, but it's no small task. As far as the markets that it opened up for us, as Jessica mentioned, it's a sine qua non. It's like, if you want to grow the company, if you want to expand your market, especially nationally or internationally, it's really a necessity. Today, our major customer is a publicly held fast casual Mediterranean chain. It has 300 locations. But there are other important customers. We have 30 natural food distributors in the U.S. We have the primary natural food distributor in Japan, and Japan is extremely quality sensitive. We've got another distributor in Bogota, Colombia, university dining halls, food hubs, and most recently, Amy's Kitchen. While SQF certification is not the sole reason that we have all these customers, it's helped us open the door and is critical for keeping their orders coming. If there's a takeaway message, it's food safety certification is at the very least a good idea if you want to grow your company with national and international customers. If you want to up your game as a food ingredient and finished food company. And if you are a food company, your products will end up in people's mouths. You don't want them to get sick and you don't want them to die. So getting food certification, it's a huge commitment of time and money. But if your current or future customers make it a necessity, you can do it. I mean, Timeless is a small company. If we can get it, you probably can too. Okay. I've got a little time for some questions. I have to head off here in a couple of minutes to do a presentation for an elementary school. So
Okay. So, David, we'll go ahead and we'll ask your questions, and then we'll bring up our other guest speaker since you have to take off. You have 2 questions in the chat. Laurel wants to know, David, was it worth it? I'd love to hear about the benefits, both externally and internally.
Of the certification? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, external it was to develop markets, and to be able to knock on doors that otherwise people wouldn't even open the door. Basically, companies would not open the door if we did not have a SQF or another food safety certification at the GFSI level. And as Jessica mentioned, once customers, once they're of a certain scale, once they're so big, they're going to require it. Internally, our operations manager, and it was a huge challenge for the staff, right? To have to do things differently, to have to fill out all this paperwork, to do all the documentation, to be held accountable for so many things. But our operations manager's message time and time again was, it's going to make us a better company. And that is just a fact, in spite of the fact that we had to, invest all this extra money in equipment. The equipment was old. We would have had to do it anyway for whatever reason, going down the, in the future. But now we can process, twice as much at twice the quality than we were able to do before. So internally, it just made us a better company. That's all.
Great. Thank you. There's another question here, David, from David. Fantastic practical info, David. Integrating a small used Bueller Kohler sorter this season. Question. Timeless is a large volume producer. Does the stringency of the certification, though not the requirements, change according to volume?
No, I don't think so. Not in our experience. I mean, we're doing, 2 or 3 times as much as we did when as far as volume goes, that we were doing when we first got certified, half a dozen years ago. The costs have gone up, but the cost of everything has gone up, right? Airplane flights into Great Falls, Montana are never cheap, even though they're from California, not that far away. Hotels are more expensive, and all those things just sort of add up. But as far as our physical footprint has not changed, but the volume within that footprint has increased, dramatically in the last over the last decade.
Great. Thank you, David. Appreciate your time. We're going to go ahead and transition to our next guest speaker. Tori is going to join us to talk a little bit about, from the retailer kind of perspective of why these kind of certifications are important. So I'll go ahead and introduce Tori. He is the managing partner and owner of, Tori, is it Valerian? Am I saying it right?
Yeah, Valerian Partners.
Okay,
Yep.
Perfect. Brings 28 years of Fortune 1 executive leadership, primarily from his career at Walmart. He's got a deep expertise in retail and operations, and has successfully led teams and managed many large-scale projects that has driven company growth. And you can see there on the slide all of his all of the things and keys that has made him what he is today. And we're going to give Tori some time here to just chat a little bit about, like I said, from the retail side of why you might want to do some of those certifications. So appreciate you joining us, Tori. I will turn the time over to you.
All right, thanks. I greatly appreciate everybody. Real quick, Valerian Partners. Our name is Valerian Partners because valerian is a root that helps you sleep better at night. And when we formed our consulting company, our goal was to help business owners sleep better at night. A little bit of a backstory, real quick, and then it will probably give you the ability to figure out what type of questions to ask me when we get to the Q&A session. But again, my background was 28 years with Walmart operations. Being based out of Idaho, I spent a significant amount of time on the Idaho Preferred Board. And one of my missions and goals as the leader of Idaho in stores in Idaho, Oregon, Utah, and Nevada was to get local farms, local growers, get their products into Walmart. When I parted ways from Walmart in a great way, when we started a company, we initially thought we would do a go-to-market strategy, help people bring products into retail. And that quickly grew into a much bigger project encompassing food processing, food safety, CFO services, HR services, because when you help someone bring something from the ground or from a cow all the way to a retailer, it's a lot of different segments and a lot of different spaces that we had to grow our company and to assist people. We most recently vertically integrated 2 dairymen in central Idaho and built a aseptic processing facility, a $200 million aseptic processing facility in Burley, Idaho, to which now they supply Costco, Walmart, food service, et cetera, with dairy products. So out of that project came lots of expertise in understanding quality food service, creating HACCP plans, building good food safety practices, et cetera. So when you look at large scale retail as a whole, there's multiple ways to breach it, I guess you could say. There's the local supplier way, where you maybe, if you're a farmer, for example, you partner up with Charlie's Produce or Grasmick Produce, and you start to supply them some key vegetables or fruits that then supply the local markets, whether it's food service, et cetera. I don't believe that necessarily requires you to have a lot of certifications, because generally Charlie's and those local suppliers that help grow your business carry a lot of that. Obviously, they're going to want to double check your work and make sure that you're doing a good job and you're supplying them with quality vegetables. But eventually, they carry most of the burden. When you decide to be the supplier, and you've made the decision, whether it be to vertically integrate, to go from farm to shelf or from cow to cup, that's when things become much more intricate, and you have to develop a much deeper GFSI certification, food safety certification plan, based off of how you're going to vertically integrate. Almost all major retailers and major grocers have what's called supplier onboarding packets, supplier onboarding packet forms. And when you complete those supplier onboarding packet forms, they're going to ask numerous questions that are really the barrier to entry to doing business with them. And always number one is going to be, who is your GFSI certification with, and what was your most recent score. Almost with everyone, as long as you're getting a B or greater, you can continue to supply. It's when you get down to a C score that then you're probably put on probation, et cetera. There's other certifications you have to keep in mind. If you're supplying something from an animal, you'll have to think about your animal welfare certification, whether it's Validus or numerous other aspects. You have to think about your social audits. Some grocers and retailers require a social audit, where they come in and watch your hiring practices, your labor practices. There's a third-party social audit that's involved with that. And then there's, depending on if you're going to be organically certified, you got to have specific organic certifications if you're grass-fed. And then additionally, almost all major players today have some type of a sustainability program that you'll need to fill out their packet and show that you're sustainable. So above and beyond GFSI, there are even more certifications as you fill out the supplier onboarding packet. It can become pretty daunting, but at the end of the day, they're all about the same. You know, if you just kind of check off the boxes and you start to get these things in line, if you want to be a direct supplier, you start to build these particular segments within your business, and someone within your business will lead these segments and manage these buckets of work. Ultimately, if you're going to be a direct supplier, the most important certification is GFSI certification, whether it's through, there's a million ones that do it. There's BRCGS, there's SQF, there's IFS, and then underneath those certifying bodies, there's numerous businesses that help you get certified in those certifications. Let's see. So when you kind of pull back the layers of the onion and you look at, how do you, if you want to become, a supplier to, the bigger retailers, the bigger grocers, the bigger food service partners, you have to ask yourself, am I going to use a co-packer, or am I going to co-pack this myself and become vertically integrated? If you do a supplier onboarding packet form and you're using a co-packer, more than likely you're going to be supplying them the information from that specific co-packer, the person that's actually doing the co-packing work for you. So you'll have to lean on, if I was growing something or I had something that was being produced somewhere and going somewhere, I would do the due diligence of making sure that they have good GFSI scores. They have good food safety practices when you're picking your co-packer, because ultimately they are the ones that potentially could shut you down with your long-term strategic partner, whether it's Walmart, Costco, Aldi, Albertsons, something like that. So there's the co-packer route where you're going to be the investigating partner on your co-packer, and then there's the vertical integrated part where if you're going to do it all the way from cup to cow or cow to cup and farm to shelf, then you're going to have to build all of these segments out. It can be daunting, but not overwhelming. You just kind of basically create a list. You go through each one of them and you just start checking them off the list. There is a considerable financial investment depending on how big you want to be. But generally, I feel like my personal position has always been, being an Idahoan, was that Idaho far too often has shipped out a lot of things they grow or dairy that they've produced. They've shipped it out to other states where they're making the money on the processing. They're making the money on the finished goods. I've always felt like in the Pacific Northwest, there's been a need for vertical integration and owning the product from the day it left the ground or left the animal to the day it hit the shelf. So there's a lot of profit to be made in there. And those are decisions as a business owner that you have to make. Do you want to use a supplier that purchases your ingredient or your product, and then they take on the responsibility of distributing it into retail or grocery? Or do you want to be the one that owns the entire value chain, the entire supply chain, and really maximize your profits? There is a significant amount of work there, and body of work and experts that you'll have to hire to manage and lead your business. But the rewards I have found to be exponential. Let's see. Boy, I could go on this topic forever. So I think sometimes, providing kind of the higher retail perspective, et cetera, maybe it's best to have a question and answer session, because I could just rattle off what questions you may have. It seems like everyone wants to know about Walmart. Everyone wants to know about Costco. I think everybody before me has done a good job of explaining GFSI. I don't think I need to go into much more depth into what it is and the importance of it. I just think if there's one message I could come across to you, that if you're sitting there and you're thinking, I'm going to put product into Costco, I'm going to put product into Walmart or Albertsons, just know that these are multi-billion-dollar brands. And the first and foremost, their buyers are taught to protect their brand. They do not want to be in the news. They want no bad publicity. And what protects them from bad publicity is making sure that their supplier partners have all of these certifications that say, essentially, you are approved to put product inside of Walmart because you are now representing the Walmart brand or the Costco brand. So I know sometimes being smaller or just starting out or growing, it can feel very daunting, like the bigger stores, the bigger retailers aren't thinking about you. They 100% want store of the community. They want local product. They want those products in their stores. They want fresh, good, locally sourced product. But at the end of the day, they have to start with protecting their brand, because they're representing a lot of jobs, a lot of people, and the customers. So if you could kind of just take a step back and look at it from the brand protection perspective, you'll understand why there is just so much that's required. But I will tell you this, if you take the steps to get these certifications, the sky is the limit. It's not just here nationally, within your state, within your community, it's global as well. There's my spill. Did I even hit 10 minutes? I don't even know if I did, but I'll take some questions, I guess. Or Jana, I know we talked yesterday and you asked for me to, I volunteered to come on. I don't know what all, if I hit it all, but I'm here to answer questions. So.
Yeah, thanks, Tori. Appreciate it. Anybody have any questions for Tori? And then we're also going to jump into those breakout rooms, and Tori's going to join us there as well. So there'll also be some time to answer those questions there. But
okay.
Does anybody have any questions for Tori about some of the things that he brought up here?
I have a question, Tori. So when you're looking back over your experience in Walmart and working with other producers, have you seen that there's like a scale benchmark that companies get to and then they're ready? So we have a whole assortment of clientele with the Northwest and Rocky Mountain Regional Food Business Center that are scaling into different markets. But is there like a volume that you've seen, like a certain number of cases or a certain number of pounds of product, any type of kind of quantitative measures that you've seen that around that scaling in to such large markets?
I think I can answer that in a couple different ways. It depends on, first and foremost, is your product in need? So if you have something that is in need and desirable in the marketplace, like right now, dairy is untouchable. Like you could take anything dairy to market right now. So anything with protein, you can take it to market. So depending on your product, if it's just something that's in demand, all of the grocers and the retailers will work with you to help meet their supply demand, even if it's a small territory. Generally, when you take Walmart, for example, they have 52 food distribution centers. Each distribution center services 100 stores. So you may have the opportunity to break out, can you supply this one product to 100 stores? Not necessarily the whole chain, but maybe you're just going into one local DC. I call them local, but they're regional really. And you're just looking at the scale from that perspective. It may be that you're even smaller and that you're working with just a particular group of stores in a market and you're not going into a DC, but you're servicing the store direct yourself. Like you're driving up a truck, you're dropping it off, or you're coming in and you're servicing it that way. Or you're using a second party that already has Walmart approval, for example, to sell in there, and you're selling to them, but then they would stock it inside of the store. Scale is an interesting word. If the product is good and it's in demand, I don't think scale really matters. Where scale comes into factor is when you decide to start to grow your business to meet the demand of where it can go. And so I always caution people, if you've got a great product, start looking at 3 to 5 year plan on how you're going to scale it. And, because the one thing you don't want to do, whether it's Costco, Walmart, Albertsons, is you don't want to run out of stock. The minute you get below 95% out of stock, you're out of there. Doesn't matter how good it is. They can't let that piece of shelf, whether it's one facing or two or whatever it is, they can't let it be empty. So it's important to look at your current production rates, what you can manufacture or grow, and match that to your current scale or to the current market that they may be able to provide for you to sell that product. And if it does well, they work with you to scale it up. Like, when are you ready to go to a second DC? When are you ready to go to 50 stores? And Costco's similar. Costco has 9 depots across the country. They can start you in one depot, or you can use a partner that is familiar with Costco and you distribute through them, like oh God, why am I drawing a blank? God, I could write up a whole list on all the distributors that you could go into that then could distribute into but that's a whole nother, you lose a lot of profit going into a distributor. But sometimes starting with a distributor, get your brand and your name out there is the way to go, and then figure out how to be the primary supplier. So there's lots of different ways to do it. What's most important is that you're honest with them up front of what you can do today and what you see yourself doing in the future. So scale's an interesting topic. I don't think there's anything too small, and I don't think there's anything too big, as long as you're committed to good in-stock and good quality.
Thank you.
I don't know if that answered that for you.
No, it did. It did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Regardless of the kind of audit that you're going to have, you don't want to wing it. You need to be prepared for it. Make sure you understand the type of certification that your customer is asking. So, like we've talked about, if they just say you need to have a food safety certification, well, what does that mean? Is GAP going to work? Is the generic HACCP food safety GMPs going to work? Or does it need to be a GFSI? And like Tori was talking about, we said we were only going to talk about food safety certifications, but there's a lot of other certifications that somebody may ask for. And again, just making sure you understand. Also, David mentioned one audit company. There are hundreds of audit companies that have different requirements and have different certifications and accreditations. Make sure that you shop around, because their audit fees are different. Even if you just say the GAP audit, there's going to be a different fee depending on the type of audit company. If you want an SQF audit, there's going to be a different fee for different audit companies. So make sure to shop around. Make sure you have a good working relationship with them. And then remember that gap assessment. Make sure to go through your programs and compare it against the audit you're going to you want to pursue. Whether any of the ones we've talked about, you can get a copy of those audits. You can get a copy of the code, the questions they're going to ask, and you want to make sure to go through them yourself to see that your programs are going to be up to snuff and pass. Jessica mentioned that, the first time she went through the SQF, there was some non-conformances and things like that she had to shore up, and then they came back and visited again. So again, just make sure you understand the audit requirements and do that gap assessment. And train all of your staff. Jessica says, double check that your audit company is approved by the customer you're selling to. Yeah, not all audit companies are Costco approved, for example. And that's completely correct as well. Some audit companies can do GAP audits, but they can't do a HACCP food safety. Some audit companies can do an SQF, but they can't do something else. And so making sure that again, you understand the audit you need, and that you're working with those companies and that they're going to work with you as well. We've mentioned a lot about where to get more help. So a couple of people have mentioned the MEP system. David talked about Montana. I'm with Idaho's MEP. We're also an SQF training center and things like that. So reach out to your MEPs in your state. Every state has one, at least for right now. Also, many of us are also extension specialists, not just from Idaho, but from other states as well. Reach out to those folks as well. Auditing companies will also provide assistance and guidance. And I think we've had a couple people mention that they've gotten some help there from that as well. And then never discount other manufacturers. So today you met just a couple of people, right? We only had so much time, and so we only had a few. But reaching out to your other manufacturers. I have one client who is mentored by several other manufacturers. They were able to give him their programs and their food safety plans, and then they didn't have to start from scratch. Like Mike mentioned, just getting a template sometimes, just being able to see it, that would be very helpful. So reach out to your network as well. After the audit, it is not a one and done. It's an annual event, so you've got to maintain. You won't be able to just finish the audit and then not worry about it till next year when the audit comes around. So you got to follow through with your corrective action plans, follow through with your food safety, and always look for improvements. I think Mike mentioned about simplifying some things. Jessica talks about the same kind of thing. So looking for ways to improve that. So that is the prepared portion. Do we have any quick questions before we move on into a little bit more about what the center might be able to help and a little bit more about what more you need help with? Yeah, Laurel mentioned she's a representative of Washington's MEP and has a grant, an email there as well. And we are going to send out contact info of our speakers as well. So we just wanted to talk a little bit about a couple of upcoming events. Colette, do you want to talk about our shared kitchen summit that we have?
Sure. Next week, we're going to have an online shared kitchen workshop. This is really when you're looking to utilize or manage a shared kitchen space. So that could be a local community kitchen. It could be looking at doing a commissary kitchen. There's all different kinds of models within that shared kitchen umbrella. So this workshop is really going to talk about the management side. So if you are either wanting to start to utilize a shared kitchen space, or you're thinking that you have a kitchen space or you want to develop a kitchen space that then you might offer in the times that you're not using it for other users, this is a great workshop. It is a free workshop, 2 half days, and it's being taught by the Food Corridor. And the Food Corridor is an organization that specializes in shared kitchen management. So if you do want to participate in that, please send myself an email because our online application is closed, but I can make sure that you get additional information. I believe we have 5 spaces left in that workshop.
Thanks, Colette. And then another one here, the Idaho Food Business Foundations. It's going to be 8 sessions of about 3 to 4 hours each on a variety of topics that companies, many things that you've brought up. We'll have a couple sessions on food safety, a couple sessions on sanitation. We're going to have a session on marketing and packaging and processing. And Colette and Jen and Ariel are going to do a session on sourcing local products and things like that. So we have that workshop coming up. That'll start up in July. And we're going to do that in person in Caldwell at the University of Idaho Food Technology Center or online over Zoom. So we'll have some more information coming out soon about that. And so then the last thing that we want to talk about is in our last 15 minutes, we've kind of got back on schedule, is next steps, where to go from here.
Okay, thanks, Yana. So if you have not already signed up to receive the Northwestern Rocky Mountain Regional Food Business Center's newsletter, we will be sending out in the list of all the links that were put in the chat today, a link for you to be able to sign up. Through that, you'll get the newsletter for the center that talks about all of the different types of existing technical assistance that's rolling out. And it also talks about business builder grants that are offered. And so we've had our first round of business builder grants. Our second round is going to launch in the fall. So that's the best way to stay up to date on what the different rolling opportunities are. The center also has resources to provide technical assistance direct to businesses. So if there's something that your specific business needs help with, in that contact form, when you fill it out, you have an opportunity to request that somebody follow up with you. And so, for instance, within the new markets for grains, pulses, and pseudo cereals, we have technical assistance funding where we can help a business have an actual technical assistance advisor that works with them one-on-one. So not everything is is focused on a class-based system. Some of those things are, but if there's something very specific, you want a specific kind of certification, you need to work with a consultant that maybe does a mock audit for you. We can help that happen. And we can contract with that technical assistance provider directly to pay the fee for their services. So the center is designed to be very, very flexible. And so we want you all to know that. We also send people to different types of trade shows. So through the new markets, we are sending people to Newtopia now. We're also in conversation about potentially sending people to Terra Madre Americas, which is in September. It's the Slow Food International that's going to happen in Sacramento, California. And so we send people to the Fancy Food Show in Las Vegas and also in New York. So if your business is at a place where you're looking to extend the market and you want to have that experience going into those food shows, it's not just about being at the food show. There's a lot of technical assistance that's provided so that you're ready and you know what you need to do when you get there to develop the relationships you want to have. So I just want to say there's a lot of diversity of support and programming. And so let us know what you need, because that's really driving what we're doing and how the technical assistance funding is allocated.
So Cheryl had a question, Colette, do the businesses have to be in Idaho? You want to talk about the regional?
No. So our food business center supports businesses in Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, and Colorado. We are one of 12 regional food business centers. So if you are outside of our region, you're in somebody else's region. Each center is designed a little bit differently, but you can contact those centers and find out how they're structured to provide technical assistance and business builder grants to businesses in your state.
Okay. Anybody have any other thoughts, comments, questions, any other last things that you'd like to chat about in the few minutes we have left?
Well, I see Cheryl's asked what she Googles, and if you just Google USDA Regional Food Business Centers, you'll get the USDA's main site that lists all the centers across the US.
Yeah, and Kate put a website there that shows all the regional food business
Perfect.
centers,
Thank
Cheryl,
you,
so
Kate.
you can just click on that. Okay. You have Colette's and my contact info, and we will be getting you the handout and the slides and the contact info for our speakers as well. That'll come as well as all the different links that Colette and Kate and such have been putting in the chat. You will be getting that information as well as the recording. So we did record it today. So anything else before we call?
I would just say good luck to everybody. I mean, if you're going to create food and a product, we need you. I mean, the country needs you. So great job. Be
Thanks,
ambitious
Tori.
and don't stop. It is such a grind. Just remember, the grind is normal. Everybody goes through it.
Thanks, Tori.
Thanks. So that is all we have for you today. So thank you everybody for joining us. We want to thank again all of our guest speakers for being able to provide their insights and knowledge and be available to answer those questions, and just be looking for more coming out of the center. We'll have more opportunities as the different theme teams roll out additional information and services as well. So thank you everybody, and have a good afternoon, and hopefully we'll see you guys and talk to you later.